Good evening, everybody. We're going to start in about 2 or 3 minutes. How many of you have been here before? How many of you are new? I want all my new people who've never been here before to stand up. I want you to know you were part of my goal for 2015, so thank you for helping me reach it. I'm very proud. I hope that y'all have a really good time tonight. Several years ago, people came from High Profile, and they said, well, where's the gala? We just see the awards. And we tried to add more gala and fewer awards. So I have some extra information here in case we need it for later. Those of you who've been here before know what I'm talking about. But before we start the official business, I'd like to ask Suzanne Barr to stand up. Where are you, Suzanne? There she is. Okay, this, to anybody else, looks like a very simple birthday card. I had a birthday in October, and Suzanne gave me a card. And on this side, she wrote, you need a t-shirt that says Forever 42. So, before you leave tonight, make sure you pick up the bags with your name on it, because one of the things that will be in there is a t-shirt, and on the back it says Forever 42. That's not the first good thing that Suzanne did, but one of the things she did yesterday was to alert me that the USS Hoga was going to be going down or upstream to its final place, and we got a picture of it. Marty, everybody thinks I took the picture, so thanks. Also, one of the other things I wanted to tell you about, several people have been asking me about a volunteer trip. And we're looking at the possibility of going to Washington, D.C. as a group sometime around the week after Labor Day of 2016. Now, I'm telling you this early because it's going to cost a little bit more than the bus trips, but it's going to be so much better. So if you're interested in going, we'll be probably arranging our tour through Poe Travel this year, and it will probably be 4 to 5 days, and it will be top of the line. So they're really professional, and they know how to put a plan together. So we're looking at 32 people. That's sort of the ideal number. We normally have, I think we've had about 30 in our last 2 trips. So one of the things I wanted to do is tell you early so you could start saving your money, okay? And I wanted them to give us a rate based on your volunteer hours, because you know y'all are up to like $11 million, but they're not there yet. I'll see what I can do. I also wanted to bring some attention to all the volunteers whose names you see on the screens. We have also put in some, oh my God, I didn't see the dinosaur with the volunteer scarf. Our director of the library is here somewhere. Oh, there she is. Hi, Terry. I'm sure that was probably done the last day. No doubt. So congratulations to all the award winners. We gave you each your packet. If for some reason you didn't get your bag with your gift in it, see Tina or Ellen or me afterwards. And here's the thing. I want everybody to pick up their gift bag when they leave. All the volunteers who are here tonight have a gift bag. And if you have a new pen or you've reached a milestone, that pen will also be in the bag with a t-shirt. And they really get raggedy looking in the office when they're there till after New Year's. So we'd really like you to pick that up. That would be fabulous. So some of you have been here for all of our awards, and I know you've gotten kind of tired of the same old. So I thought I'd ask somebody to come tonight to tell you a story. And she wouldn't come, but she asked me to read her story for you. And it's the last in a series of The Desperate Woman. And this one is entitled, The Desperate Woman Learns a Lesson. It was a cold autumn day, rain pouring from buckets in the sky, and the wind was howling. Desperate Woman was standing at the window in her office. "How dreary it is," the desperate woman said to herself. "Wouldn't you know it? I have to be here instead of wrapping myself up in a cozy blanket, watching Ellen on TV and polishing my beautiful nails." She shivered a bit and then felt an overwhelming need to whine about her day. She dragged herself out of the office and stumbled into the bright happiness of the volunteer lounge. Good grief, she thought. What is everyone so happy about? It is so miserable and cold and miserable. Why are you even here? She mumbled sort of under her breath. One of the volunteers looked up and saw her standing there. "Oh, hey, didn't think you were in your office. We were just laughing about how funny some of our 400,000 guests can be. They make it so much fun to be here. We, LOVE, being here and meeting all the fascinating travelers." "Well, you don't have to be so gleeful about them," she muttered to herself, because no one was paying any attention to her anyway. "I'm sure no one is here today because it's so wet and unpleasant. Oh no, there's a great crowd. They love our exhibits. There are people here from Denmark and Australia and Toadsuck. We love it. They're one of the main reasons we come." "Well, bah humbug to you," the desperate woman groused. "And all I get to do is plan the volunteer gala. I could so love a manicure, pedicure, and a head massage right now. Maybe a mimosa or 3. Holy moly, I wish I could be having fun in the sun, pedal to the metal, waiting at a beach like everybody else." That night, the desperate woman finally climbed into bed after declaring to her secret husband that the late night shows were just not funny anymore and mostly a waste of good airtime when she heard a loud, ominous thump. What was that, she wondered. Probably a deer or an animal of some sort. She rolled over, buried her head further in the covers, then she heard it again. Thump. "What? I've about had it with you," she snapped into the darkness. Then she felt a cold breeze and heard a very scary, loud, sinister voice. "Desperate woman, don't be a scaredy cat. Come out from the covers, for I am a ghost." "A ghost of what?" she whimpered. "I don't believe in ghosts." She burrowed deeper yet under her blankets. Her toes were sticking out under the sheets, but she felt a cold, clammy hand grab her big toe and pinch it. "Hey, lady, I'm real. Get it together." "Oh, great," sighed the desperate woman. "I need a ghost like I need a broken fingernail. But you are super scary, and your hands feel like they really, really need a good soothing lotion. So whatever. Desperate woman, hear my words. I am the ghost of the Great Hall, and I am here to give you a message. At the strike of midnight, you will be visited by 2 ghosts. Do not treat them as rudely as you have treated me, or they will give you a reason to be desperate. Listen to their words and learn from them." The ghost disappeared, and suddenly the room was nice and cozy again. "Whoa," Desperate Woman said as she peeped out from underneath her covers. She sighed a sigh of relief. "Wow, that must have been bad fish I had for dinner. I must be hallucinating. That dream was too weird." She had almost fallen asleep when the sound of glass shattering woke her up. "Oh no, what now?" she asked herself. And there before her hovered a ghost in flowing sheaths of white. It pointed a bony finger at her. "Desperate Woman, I am the ghost of Gala's past, and I am here to remind you of them. Close your eyes and remember 2005. The first anniversary of the opening. It was freezing cold. Everyone was in a tent having fun except you. You were standing outside, huddled in front of a heater. But you didn't really know any of the volunteers then. All they did was open the library while you sat at a cushy desk and did whatever someone told you to do. They worked in trailers and trudged through the mud, beginning to put together what would become a volunteer corps. You did not know them then, and the hundreds who worked so hard. You did not appreciate all they did and were doing. You thought it happened all by yourself. Then, 5 years later, you were there in yet another big tent. It was the center's 5th anniversary, and it was very cold. Everyone was very excited. The volunteer program had become much more sophisticated, and our volunteer program lasted only into the wee moments of the next morning. Volunteers smiled under their breath, but they were saying, "How much longer can this go on? Maybe till next year's gala." But you heard their cries of desperation. You shortened their program, and they loved you for it. Have you forgotten how happy you were, how much you have grown to love each of the volunteers? You must never forget what you must do. And by the way, get your hair fixed. Get some highlights. You're a mess. And with that, those words of wisdom, the ghost of Gala's past vanished into the night. Oh my gosh. What in the world was that about? He thinks I need a color job? What kind of ghost is he anyway? Realizing she needed to improve her beauty regimen, she closed her eyes and soon she was sleeping. Suddenly, there was a loud rapping at the window. Our heroine was once again rudely awakened by the cold, icy fingers of a frightening, loathsome being dressed in flowing robes. "Wake up, desperate woman. I am the ghost of Gala's future. You must see what I bring you. Look into the future. Tell me what you see." "Well, I don't see anything," she said. "There's nothing to see." "Aha," said the scary ghost. "You are correct. The future is still undetermined. You must write the script yourself. Learn the lesson, and the future will be clear and gratifying. Your volunteers will be many and will bring great talents to your center. They will bring vivacity and goodwill. They will tell their best life stories, and people will come." With that, the ghost dissipated into thin air. Well, the story would end there, except that Desperate Woman needed to understand the lesson. What had the ghost of Gala Futures meant? Desperate Woman thought, and then she thought some more, and then she found the lesson she needed to understand. The day dawned bright and beautiful, the day of the gala of 2015. The Desperate Woman stretched her arms and jumped up and flung open the windows. What a beautiful, amazing day. What a day is that day. She and all of her staff at the Clinton Center would be able to say thank you to all the wonderful volunteers. Wow, they do so much to make this building into a place of warmth and dreams and inspiration. They breathe life and life's lessons into our heart and soul. They are the past, the present, and the future. I never saw, I never knew, thought Desperate Woman. I was so busy being desperate that I missed all the good stuff. Now I know what I was missing, the joyful nature of volunteering, the happiness that comes from being part of a family, the pride of supporting the 42nd President of the United States. Later, desperate woman was rushing out of her office, getting ready for the present-day gala ceremony in the Great Hall, when she suddenly stopped in front of a mirror. She looked at herself. Her hair needed highlights. Her makeup could do just so much for that face, and she really needed to lose a few pounds. Okay, maybe more than a few. But the surprising thing was that she didn't see a desperate woman frowning back at her. She saw this beautiful hall full of brilliant, remarkable, and delightful men and women who each have surprising, moving, stunning stories to tell. And finally, she saw herself, someone who was grateful, thankful, and happy to be part of the Clinton Center, proud to do what she could do, and somehow, looking at that face in the mirror, she didn't see a desperate woman. She saw 300 smiling faces smiling right back at her. She smiled a sparkling, very white smile. God bless us, each and every one, she said to herself, and she was never desperate again. So y'all no longer need to suffer through desperate woman. She'll be fine. Stephanie, are you ready? Okay. This is the time we've been waiting for, the announcement of the 42 award winners. And I'm so glad and so happy and proud to have Stephanie Street and Bruce Lindsay here to again announce our 42 winners.
Good evening. Stephanie and I are always excited to announce the 42 award winners. As most of you know, these are the 42 volunteers who put in the most hours during the past year. Together, these volunteers volunteered more than 25,000 hours. Stephanie is going to read the list, and we would ask you to hold your applause to the entire list is read. These volunteers will be honored at a reception in the executive suite next spring.
Great.
Stephanie?
Thank you, Bruce. All right, here we go. Catherine Babb, John Bangert, Suzanne Barr, Georgie Boucher, Joy Broach, Jennifer Bryant, Carol Burgett, George Campbell, Betty Cook, Suzanne Crosby, Pat Edwards, Kat French, Bob Garrison, Jesse Gatewood, Bob G., Dennis Hackbart, Margaret Hartley, Coralie Hawkins, Lemoyne Jones, John Joyce, Sherry Joyce, Bill Kidd, John Lambie, Louis Leslie, Shirley Mahone, Leon Marks, Bill Candless, Tony Maloney, Shirley Montgomery, Pat and Peggy Oakes, Jenny Pace, Patsy Pack, LaBethel Peters, Peggy Perkis, Joanne Ray, Jinky Redden, Peggy Reynolds, Joe Schmidt, Jean and Ingrid Seymour, Elizabeth Ann Smith, Fred Strebeck, Vanessa Taylor, Claudette Votor, and Marvis Williams. Thank you all again so much for everything you do throughout the year.
Are we going to sit over there?
Yes, let's do that.
I wanted to give, before we announce the next award winners, a special thank you to Dean Rutherford for being here. His wife had surgery today, and he's here with us tonight. And I just wanted to say thank you, Skip. And also a thank you to Terry Garner and Kurt Zinn, who really run this library every day. And thank you both, and Kathleen, wherever Kathleen is. Thank you all for being here and helping us. At this time, I'd like to ask Dick Picard and Marvis Williams to step up here. We are about to present the Spirit of the Center Award. Marvis and Dick are our current 2014 Spirit of the Center Award winners. The heart of a volunteer is not measured in size, but by the depth of the commitment to make a difference in the life of others. The Spirit of the Center Award was created in 2009 to honor the memory of Ken Schultz, a founding volunteer who passed away in 2009. Until a couple of weeks before his death, Ken made the drive from Hot Springs Village to the Clinton Center every Wednesday morning for almost 5 years. I could hear him coming down the hall, not by his footsteps, but by his whistling. Ken never complained, never berated anyone, never had a bad day here. We loved Ken, and we miss his spirit every day. Now, each year, we honor 2 volunteers who have brought that same happy, giving heart with them each time they volunteer. They share their joy, their kindness, and their love for this center with each and every volunteer and visitor. The spirit of the center, the joy of public service is in their hearts. For the 2015 year and from now on, this award will be presented in memory of all of our volunteers who have passed away and whose spirit remains with us always. Tonight, we honor 2 amazing volunteers. They both work on Saturdays. They share their knowledge and enthusiasm with our guests, and they actually sometimes make the supreme sacrifice and work during a Razorback football game. They personify the best volunteer spirit, and while so many of you do a great and extraordinary job here, we selected these volunteers to present our Volunteer Spirit of the Year. Do we have their awards? I will ask Dick and Marvis to present our 2015 Spirit Center Awards, to Shirley Montgomery and Jesse Gatewood.
How you want us, like this?
I don't want to make this any longer than it has to be, but I taught school for a while. And many times when I was teaching, people would ask me, what does it take to be a good teacher? And I thought about it a long time, and I finally came up with, number 1, you have to love the subject you're teaching. And number 2, you got to love the group of people that you are teaching. And I think Jesse, and it's just, he epitomizes that, I think.
too bad I hate exercise as much as I do because they tell me I need to stretch. So, what I will do, I've just really gone to the well the last time. I mean, there's just so much less to talk about now than there was. I did turn 65 in October. And I have the pleasure of carrying a Medicare card with me now. And I heard on The Good Wife, one of the lawyers talking about ageness. And I really, truly believe what the desperate woman said, in that being with you has really helped me face my age issue. Sort of. I won't wear spandex. And I tend to embarrass my daughter every now and then. But y'all have wonderful lives. And you're brilliant, and you're brave, and you love to travel for long and extended periods. I mean, we only have one that's gone for 5 months, and others are gone for 4 months, and then others just go all the time. Jay-Z, you're just looking at me, and so thank you for helping me face the next part of my life. It's meant quite a bit to me. Y'all are my idols. And you are the kindest and most compassionate people that I know. And it has been a blessing for me to be here. I do want to ask you a question, well, actually a favor. There is a young man who works for Raven who has had a very difficult time lately. His father just passed away, and he has always worked hard for everything he has. I asked the folks at Raven if there was anyone who maybe needed a little bit of help for Christmas, and they told me they had someone. If any of you feel the need and the desire to help this young man out, if you will just give us $1 or $2, maybe when you pick up your bags as you leave, it would make a real difference in his life. He's had a very hard time the last couple of weeks since his father died. So with that, I want y'all to mingle and talk amongst yourselves, and I promise it will not be very long at all. Okay? Huh? No, you can't leave the room. But there's so many interesting people next to you and behind you. Pretend like you're in church and just turn around and shake hands and introduce yourself, and we'll be right back. It's time to resume our program. And as is always the custom, I would like to introduce to you the 2014 Miss America. Oh, I'm sorry. The 2014 Volunteer of the Year, Tony Maloney.
Now, I know this is only one small little sentence, and actually typed it out for me so I wouldn't screw it up. But I got to take my glasses off. As the 2014 Clinton Center Volunteer of the Year, it is my honor and pleasure to introduce you to the 42nd President of the United States, President Bill Clinton.
Tony.
This year I got my Arkansas. Remember last year I had my Nebraska.
I do remember. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Ann. Happy holidays. I want to thank all the volunteers and visitor services people, the staff members who are here. And I think it's important to acknowledge that we lost two of our remarkable volunteers last year, Beth Campbell early in 2015, and Polly Reagan, whom I had known for a long time in our former lives. And we thank them and wish them Godspeed. With 54,000 hours, our 273 volunteers worked this year. We have now rendered almost 550,000 hours of volunteer service since the library opened its doors in November of 2004. So you should give yourselves a big hand. That's a great thing. First of all, if it weren't for you, we wouldn't have a library. And if we tried to pay for what you do as volunteers, we would have been broke a long time ago. But more importantly is the way you make people feel. I can't tell you how many letters I have personally received from people from all over the world who have come here and been greeted or toured around by one or more of you, telling me what a wonderful experience it was and how they were made to feel at home and understood the remarkable culture that produced all of you and somehow allowed me to become only the second governor of a small state ever elected president. So I'm very grateful to you all. I also want to do what I'm supposed to do, which is to give the Lifetime Achievement Award, the fourth ever we'd ever given, and also the Volunteer of the Year Award. Martin Luther King once said, "Everyone can be great because everyone can serve." I just took a picture with all of this year's class of AmeriCorps volunteers at City Year upstairs. And this is the only semi-political thing I'm going to say all night. But I was thrilled when, with no notice to me, a certain candidate for president said if she were elected, she would expand the annual numbers of people in AmeriCorps from 75,000 to 250,000 volunteers a year. I think once the Clinton School has been in business long enough, after we've got, let's say, 20 years worth of graduates, it will be fascinating to see how the experience shaped their lives. Some will go into public service, most will wind up in the private sector, some will run for office, most will not. But I'll bet you anything, most all of them will be rendering some kind of service to their communities, their state, and their nation above and beyond what the average contribution is in America. It's a lifetime discipline and a gift. So tonight, we should keep that in mind as we present the fourth Clinton Presidential Center Lifetime Achievement Award, given only to volunteers who've reached the 10,000 hour milestone. Tonight's honoree has dedicated 10,045 hours since he began volunteering in 2005, with 776 this year alone. The majority have been served at the Clinton School. In fact, our award winner has spent not only a tremendous amount of time and energy volunteering at the center, but has gotten to know every single student at our school in every class. In so doing, he's become a source of guidance for students and a genuine friend. They all have their own special stories
about the work, the personality, and the friendship of tonight's awardee, Bob G.
Okay.
First, Mr. President, thank you for all that you have done and still do, which allows all of us in this room to tell some great stories about you and your life and what you did as President of the United States. And it certainly has been a pleasure to spend time with this group over the last 10 years. So thanks to you, but a special thanks to Dean Rutherford and to Nikolai DePippa for just allowing me to hang out at the school for the last 10 years. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Did I get a picture with you?
Yeah, we did it. Thank you. As always, this year the staff was faced with a happy but difficult job. Our volunteers, we all believe, are just the best. So there's always a real challenge to find those most deserving when so many give so much. Our Volunteer of the Year has given 4,700 hours to date, more than 600 hours in 2015 alone, spending her time in the place she's most passionate about, the museum. There she serves as both a station volunteer and a docent. To all who know and love her, she's kind, polite, charming, but underneath there is a very strong, self-directed, amazing person who comes through in the hardest times, assesses difficult situations, and uses good judgment in important decisions. It is my great honor to present the 2015 Volunteer of the Year Award to Elizabeth Smith. Hold your award. Say something.
Oh.
Wait.
Where else could I come and meet people from all over the world? It's really been just great volunteering here.
Thank you. Given what we have all listened to this year in lengthier forums, I think you should consider running for office. That was a heck of a talk. I want to say just a couple more words to try to illustrate why I think what you do here is so important. I want to thank Dean Rutherford and our board chair, Bruce Lindsay, and Stephanie Street, and Terry Garner, and everybody who works here for what they do. But for those of you who conduct the tours here and who actually have read every word of all the exhibits, you know that this was a big year for us because it's the 20th anniversary of a lot of important things. 20th anniversary of Oklahoma City. The 20th anniversary of my decision in the face of a morning poll saying the American people were 81-11 against it to loan money to Mexico so they didn't go broke. The 20th anniversary of our normalization of relations with Vietnam. The 20th anniversary of the Irish ceasefire, and my trip to Northern Ireland, the first president ever to go there in the Troubles, the 20th anniversary of the slaughter at Srebrenica and the peace at Dayton, Ohio, where I was just last week, ending the longest and bloodiest conflict in Europe since the end of World War II, and the 20th anniversary of the death of Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, about 10 days after we were together and I witnessed, literally signing on the dotted line, a big transfer of land in the West Bank from Israel to the Palestinians. And just think about that. There's a lot of controversy now about immigrants. When I helped Mexico, people thought I was nuts. We had just lost the Congress, and my young staff thought I was crazy. The Republican leader of the Senate, Bob Dole, for whom I gave a speech yesterday at his center in Kansas, and even the Speaker of the House, who was my steadfast opponent, Newt Gingrich, were both in favor of my doing it, and were going to pass a bill to that effect. And on the day I had to decide, they came down to see me and said they had both been told they would be deposed if they supported me, and I would have to act with executive authority. It was about a 5-minute decision for me, because I said, look, if we don't do this, we'll have 1 million more undocumented immigrants, we'll have more narcotics coming across the border, and everybody in Mexico and South America will hate our guts, and we need their friendship and partnership for the new century. Mexico paid the loan back 3 years early with $590 million of interest. And it's important to remember that people pay their public servants to win for them. And they want you to pay attention to them. But if you have information they don't have, and you can see down a corner and around the bend, you're supposed to do it. Notwithstanding the discussion this year about immigration, you should know that last year a major study came out, or earlier this year, saying that between 2010 and 2014, there was exactly 0 increase in undocumented Mexicans coming into the United States. 0, actually a decline in 40,000. And it appears that the number is going down again this year. One reason is the previous president of Mexico, Mr. Calderon, who only made headlines for fighting the narco traffickers north of Monterrey, also established 140 tuition-free universities, and that nation, with 1/3 our population, last year graduated 113,000 people with engineering degrees compared to 120,000 in America. So why am I telling you this? Because decisions have consequences. And in an interdependent world where our borders look more like nets than walls, and we see again in Paris the tragedies that can happen, it's not a bad thing to build up your neighbors and help them to succeed. And over the long run, it leads to more opportunities and fewer problems. The Irish ceasefire has held against all the odds and snags in the road. Vietnam is America's strongest ally in Southeast Asia, our closest friend. And I remember when we started down this road, the Prime Minister of Vietnam had lost a brother in the Vietnam War. And he knew I had worked for Senator Fulbright, who had led the opposition to the war in the United States. So the first time we were at a meeting with all these other leaders from Asia, he said, you know, I lost a brother in the war. I said, I know, I'm sorry. He said, I want you to know how much I appreciate the fact that you weren't for it. And I said, thank you very much. But I said, you know, the man I just named ambassador, Congressman Pete Peterson from Florida, served 6.5 years in the Hanoi Hilton, your POW camp. And he did not go there to try to dominate your future or colonize your country. I think we made a mistake, but it was a mistake of the head, not the heart. He said, I know that. He said, we all know that. we will be your best friend. And 20 years later, sure enough, they're our closest ally in Asia. I went to Bosnia, and I was thinking about this a lot when Paris was attacked this week, because I had worked for 2.5 years to get our NATO allies and the United Nations to authorize us to bomb Serbian targets to stop the genocide of the Bosnian Muslims and the smaller but significant killing of the Croatian Catholics by the Serbs. Nothing happened until 8,000 boys and men were killed at Srebrenica. And then the market, the hundreds-of-year-old market in Sarajevo, was bombed. And the big holdup I had was France, because the French saw the Serbs through the eyes of their helping them to oppose Hitler. And the then president of France called me and said, "They lied to us. What do you want me to do?" And I told Hillary when this happened in Paris, I said, "You watch, it will be blinding how fast the French catch these people." And it was amazing, wasn't it? How they turned on a dime. Meanwhile, flawed though it was, the peace agreement reached at Dayton has also held. And this year, when we celebrated Srebrenica, every year on the anniversary, the all year long effort to recover human remains and then provide testing so they can be identified, there's a burial ceremony. And the burial ceremony occurred this year right after our formal commemoration inside the battery factory where most of the men and boys were killed. The 36-year-old mayor of Srebrenica got up and said, "I am the accidental mayor because I am the accidental survivor. My father was killed, my brother was killed, every male classmate I had was killed. I am the only person they did not find in the woods when they came looking. I have no earthly idea why I survived. But I do know this. I'm not going to waste my life trying to get even. We've got to go beyond this." And then he pointed to the Prime Minister of Serbia, who is only 39 years old. And he said, "I invited him here today, and I expect you to make him feel welcome. We have to make a future together." It made it all seem worth it. So when you're celebrating 20 years, you can see what the consequences are, good and bad and indifferent. And I could go through each of these things. I went back to Tel Aviv to celebrate the memory of Yitzhak Rabin on the 20th anniversary of his killing. And as several of you know, we were very close by the end of his life. And I was fortunate enough to go up to Mount Herzl, where the National Cemetery is. An hour after it is closed, they made it possible for me to go alone, so I could go to the graveside of Yitzhak Rabin and his wife Leah. And at night, in the ceremony, there were 100,000 Israelis in the street, remembering that they once had a leader who believed they could live in peace with the Palestinians. 100,000 people 20 years later. I say that because you got to understand, you're giving people a gift here when you tell them what happened. And they realize that you can mark 5, 10, 15, 20, someday 50 or 100 years and see whether it worked out. Now, there are very few final victories in politics or economics. Those are rocks you roll up a hill, and when they roll back down on you, you got to get up and go push again. The whole idea is you're trying to bend history in the right direction. And we are living in a world where we are more interdependent than ever before, but that's good and bad. Not good or bad, good and bad. The cell phone can be used to detonate a bomb by a terrorist, but it's lifted more people out of poverty in more places in less time than any instrument in history. The social media has allowed young people of modest means in the United States to contribute $10 or $25 to poor people all over the world trying to educate girls and women or start their own businesses or do Lord only knows what else, but it's been a recruiting tool for ISIS. But I think it's important that all of you remember that for every young person so desperate to find meaning in his or her life, that they would gladly commit suicide and take 50 or 60 years off their lives for the pleasure of killing a bunch of anonymous people on the promise of a dubious heaven, there are a million more who embrace our diversity and the individual dignity of every human being and believe we can make a new future. And I also think, closer to home, it's important that people see these things because they need to know that America can grow with broad-based prosperity. When we celebrated the 10th anniversary of the library, somebody just asked me from the audience what I thought the most important thing I had done domestically was, and I said, inclusive prosperity. Bottom 20% of the workers increased their incomes 23.6%, same as the top 5%. Every segment of the American economy did better in those 8 years than under President Reagan, except the top 5%, and much better since. We can do that again. Any objective look at our assets, our relative youth, our diversity, our universities, our entrepreneurial spirit, our massive energy sources, the fact that we rank first or second in the world in the capacity to be completely energy independent by generating energy from the sun, the wind, the water, geothermal, biomass, all these things, we have enormous advantages. The fact that we led the world in sequencing the human genome, and now I spent $3 billion of your money on that. It's a lot of money, huh? You know how much economic activity there's been now since that happened? Just in genomics, almost $900 billion. Best return we ever got on an investment in less time. Anybody who's sitting here from 20,000 feet looking at this would say, I'd rather be in America than any other country over the next 30 years. But Americans are disheartened because median income adjusted for inflation is lower than it was the day I left office. Because since the crash, only 16% of the people after inflation have had any kind of income increase. Because, listen to this, life expectancy for non-college educated, middle-aged white people is going down as alcoholism, diabetes, and opiate addiction, gifting into heroin addiction in small towns and rural areas is going up. People are dying of broken hearts. And so I want you to think about that, because a lot of working people come here and they remember that it wasn't so bad. And you need to tell them it can be again. There is not any difficulty we have that couldn't be addressed very well if we would go back to cooperation instead of conflict, to inclusive politics and inclusive economics and inclusive societies instead of figuring out how we can slice up the pie to win the next election. And that's what I want people to know. I don't care what their politics are. I just want them to know it makes a difference. Whether you vote makes a difference. What you vote for makes a difference. The history of our country creates the present, and the history we make will create the future. You do all that too. And it's really been on my mind a lot lately because of Paris and because of all those 20-year anniversaries. I had no way of knowing at the time how they would all work out. I have been frustrated and disappointed in the intervening 20 years by the fact that the Vietnamese didn't move faster on human rights than I thought they should. That the Irish keep fighting over things that I think are insignificant when they're so well positioned to claim their future. That the Bosnian Serbs remain divided between those who want to work with their neighbors and those that want to fight with them. There are no final permanent victories, but there is going in the right direction and going in the wrong direction. Anything you can do to make sure that every person, no matter what his or her problems or difficulties, who comes through this library understands that if we do the right things, they'll be better off here than in any other major country in the world. You have done a good thing for them and for the future of our children and grandchildren. God bless you and happy holidays.
Okay, everybody, I think there's still a little wine and a little food left. Thank you all for being here. Happy Thanksgiving, happy holidays. Looking forward to 2016. Thank you.